right. I think we'll get started.
I'll get out of your way.
So,
all right.
Are you going to say anything, or should I just start off? If you want to just start, that'd be great. Ready?
How long did it take you?
So you're going to introduce Bruce first. Yeah, and then he'll do some words, and then you've got the whole. You got it. All right.
And in fact, the Odyssey, which I followed up with.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Homerathon, and it is my great pleasure to introduce Bruce Harreld, who is a true Renaissance man with both a love of finance and a dedication to the arts and sciences. He is committed to learning and to our public institutions of education, advocating for the mission of the university and for the empowerment of its young people. And we thank him for joining us today. Bruce?
Wow, thank you.
Wow, I'd like to bottle her. Thank you. I really appreciate all of you coming. This is the first time in a major way that we've done this, although I think the department in one way or the other has done it in smaller versions with not quite as public as this. But my guess is that many of you don't know, but my guess is many of you do know that in 1847, when this institution was created, there were 4 departments, and classics was one of those 4. So there is a long, long history here of not only teaching, but honoring, respecting, translating, studying the classics. And this is hopefully the beginning of a marvelous tradition for us. Much of the liberal arts, I think, is largely misunderstood by our society today, and it frustrates me to no end. We are doomed to a lot of problems if we don't study our past, and in a lot of the classics are some of the, classic stories of our humanity. And in those stories are interesting conflicts that in many ways are still going on. And they're important to be told. And I think it's also important for us to discuss them. One of the very interesting things is that for thousands of years, these stories came to us through this mechanism of verbal speech and people in gatherings listening. And then more recently, we now have it on our phones and our iPods and pads and all the rest, and we're in our little corners all alone reading those fantastic stories. But I don't know about you, but I actually think it loses something in that individual little huddle of ours. There's something to be said for a community coming together to share the story. And in fact, I know in our classroom, there's another benefit as we get students together to debate and discuss and to reflect on some of these conflicts that were going on thousands of years ago. And that's in many ways what I think the humanities are all about. And people somehow say, well, there's not a job there, and therefore let's move. And I have, self-confession, I have a STEM background. I am an engineer. But over the years, I've reflected on all the things I didn't study in engineering and found them to be actually a lot more useful in some respects and a lot more interesting. And a lot of those are in the liberal arts. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans. And we all need to figure out a way to work and communicate and argue constructively together. That's a lot of what I know we teach throughout our College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Eta Sigma Phi, thank you very much. It's the Undergraduate Classics Honor Society. We wouldn't be here without your interest, support. Thank you so much for all that you've done. And then for all of you that were probably clapping, who are members of the Department of Classics, thank you. Thank you ever so much for all that you do for us. You know, we encounter this literature, as I said today, often now by reading, And I was commenting earlier as I was getting ready for this event, I started tearing up because I'm 68 years old. And when I was very young, my mother would sit around our kitchen table and read to me these stories. My first interaction with this story was my mother reading it to me. And I'd forgotten all that. I'd lost that. So and I'm starting to tear up now. But this work touches all of us. And it's a pretty important story. And I'm glad we're going to have the opportunity of sharing it with all of you. This department in classics is exceedingly interdisciplinary. It has numerous faculty that has relationships somewhere else in the university, often in anthropology or history, religious studies, as you might imagine, the honors program, Masters of Fine Arts program. And our faculty have touched not only this campus and all of our students, but in most cases, touched the world, and still are doing that. The internationally known classics journal, Selectica Classica, is edited by someone here quite close to us, Professor Marcus Berry, and as well as a number of graduate students. John Finnemore, the editor of the International Journal of the Platonic Tradition, and president of the U.S. section of the International Society for Neoplatonic Studies. Several faculty members, I'm sure, who are with us are officers of all sorts of national classic associations. So in a sense, the classics are running through our veins, our history, and very much, I hope, and I'm sure and willing to support, our future. So this story that I have the opportunity of reading the first 120 lines of, and I'm going to ask for a lot of support here from my faculty colleagues as I try to not pronounce anything in a Latin way, but try to get it into the Greek way. You're all going to laugh. You're all going to have your red marking pens out, but bear with me. But it's a great story. It's one of perhaps the world's best-known epic. It's the story of Achilles. It was probably the greatest warrior, clearly in Troy, and maybe in the history of our world.
Peter's going to read the first 52 lines.
Oh, good. I always wondered why my piece started with line 52. And Peter's going to read the first 52, and I'm going to read the next up through 120. Thank you. But this story is a story of anger and love. There's a lot of loss. There's a lot of tragedy. But through these stories, we learn who we are, where we've come from, and where we're going. With that, would you like to introduce Peter?
I would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be back.
To introduce myself, I guess I just assume people know who I am. I'm Helena Dettmer. I'm the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs and Curriculum in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and I'm also a classicist. So it is my pleasure to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Peter Green. Peter not only is well known for his works on the Greco-Persian Wars, Alexander the Great, and the Hellenistic age of ancient history, but as a translator of both Latin and Greek literary works. He has rendered into English outstanding translations of Ovid's erotic and exilic poetry, juvenile satires, Catullus' poetry, Apollonius of Rhodes' Argonautica, and most recently, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. Currently, Peter is working on a commentary of Herodotus' histories. You probably realize that he likes to keep busy. And in our Homerathon, he will be reading from his translation of Homer's Iliad.
Thank you, Helena.
I can hold this in case of the wind if you like.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay. Wrath goddess, sing of Achilles, Peleus' son's calamitous wrath, which hit the Achaeans with countless ills. Many of the valiant souls it saw off down to Hades, souls of heroes
their selves left us carrion for dogs and all birds of prey, and the plan of Zeus was fulfilled. From that first moment, those two men parted in fury, Atreus' son, king of men, and the godlike Achilles. Which of the gods was it that brought them into contention? Leto's and Zeus's son. For he, enraged by the king, spread a foul plague through the army, and men were dying. All because Chryses, his priest, had been dishonored. By Atreus' son, Chryses came to the Achaean swift ships to win his daughter's release, bringing ransom past counting. In his hands the laurel wreaths of the deadly archer Apollo on a golden staff, and made his plea to all the Achaeans, but first to the two sons of Atreus, the host's field marshals. Atreus' sons, and you, other well-grieved Achaeans, may the gods who have their homes on Olympus grant you to sack Priam's city and win a safe homecoming. But release my dear daughter, accept the ransom I offer. Show respect for Zeus' son Apollo, the deadly archer. Then all the other Achaeans spoke up in agreement to respect the priest, to accept his splendid ransom. Yet Atreus' son Agamemnon's angry heart remained untouched. Brusquely he turned him away with words of harsh dismissal. Don't let me find you still here, old man, by the hollow ships, either loitering now or making your way back later, lest your staff and the gods' wrath and God's wreath afford you no protection. Here I shall not release. No, sooner shall old age reach her, in our house, in Argos, far from her native country, working to and fro at the loom, and sharing my bed. Now go, and do not provoke me if you want to depart in safety. So he spoke. The old man was scared and obeyed his words. Silent along the shore of the thunderous sea he went. But once well away, long and deeply, the old man prayed to Apollo his lord, the child of fair-haired Leto. Hear me, you of the silver bow, protector of Chryse and holy killer, who rule with might over Tenedos. Smintheus, if ever for you I roofed a pleasing precinct, if ever I burned for you the fat-rich thigh bones of bulls or goats, now grant me this my desire. Use your arrows to make the Danaans pay for my tears. Thus he spoke in prayer, and Phoebus Apollo heard him. Down from the peaks of Olympus he hastened, enraged at heart, carrying on his shoulders his bow and lidded quiver, arrows rattling loud on his shoulders, as in his rage he strode on his way. He came as nightfall comes. Away from the ships he sat, and let fly an arrow, fearful the twang of his silver bow. To begin with, it was the mules he aimed at, and the swift dogs, but later he made the troops the targets of his sharp shafts, and struck, day in, day out, the clustering corpse fires flared.
Here we go.
Beautiful. Well done. Thank you. 9 days throughout the army, the gods' shafts sped. On the 10th, Achilles summoned the troops to the place of assembly. For white-armed Hera, the goddess, had put this in his mind since she pitied the Danaans as she saw them dying. So when they had gathered and were all assembled together, swift-footed Achilles stood up and spoke among them, saying, Son of Atreus, I think we shall now be driven into retreat and forced back home. Even should we escape with our lives, if indeed war and plague together are to crush the Achaeans. Come then, let us find the question, some priest or diviner, or even a reader of dreams, since a dream too is from Zeus, who might explain to us Phoebus, Apollo's deep anger. Is it a misvow that riles him? Were some oxen not sacrificed? Maybe catching the savor of lambs and unblemished goats. He'll be waiting to give us relief. Call off this onslaught. This said, he sat down, and there next stood up among them Calchas, Thestor's son of the seers by far the finest. He knew events present and future, as well as from the past, and had brought the Achaeans' fleet safe to landfall by Iliad. Through the diviner's art he had from Phoebus Apollo, he with friendly intent now spoke before the assembly, saying, Ah, Achilles, dear to Zeus, you bid me explain the reason for the wrath of my lord Apollo, the lead archer. Then tell you I shall, but you must agree and swear to be my willing protector with word and with hand, since I think I shall anger a man who holds powerful rule over the Argives, to whom the Achaeans owe allegiance. For a king has the upper hand when enraged by a commoner, since though he may swallow his wrath that day, yet he still nurses resentment thereafter in his heart of hearts. Tell me then, will you protect me? Then swift-footed Achilles spoke to him thus in answer. Have no fear. Reveal any oracle that you know of, for by Apollo dear to Zeus, to whom you, Calchas, pray when you make plain his oracles to the Danaans. No man, while I still live and have sight upon this earth, shall lay heavy hands on you, the hollow ships of all the Danaans. Not even if Agamemnon, you mean, who claims to be the noblest of the Achaeans. At this the blameless diviner was emboldened and spoke out. It is for no missed vow or rich sacrifice that he faults us, but because of the priest who Agamemnon dishonored, refusing to free his daughter, to accept ransom for her. Hence those griefs that the deadly archers inflicted and will inflict. No way will he free the Danaans from this loathsome havoc until we give back to her father the quick-eyed girl, unbought, unransomed, and take to Chryses a rich, holy sacrifice. This is the only way we might appease and persuade him. This said, he sat down, and there stood upon them Atreus' heroic son, wide-ruling. His eyes had the semblance of blazing fire. Calchas he first addressed with a look of hatred, saying, Prophet of doom, not once have you told me anything pleasing. What's always dear to your heart is to prophesy disaster. Nothing good have you ever foretold or brought to pass them, because I was unwilling to accept a bounteous ransom for this girl Chryses, since I'd rather keep her with me at home. Indeed, I prefer her to Clytemnestra, my wedded wife, who equal she is in all ways, being as good-looking, as tall, as clever, as accomplished, Yet even so, I'll return her, if that should be best. I want to have my troops safe, not facing destruction, but you must find me a prize at once, so I'm not the only Argive left prizeless. That would not be seemly, for you see this, all of you, that my prize is going elsewhere. Sorry about that.
Then to him replied swift-footed, godlike Achilles, most glorious son of Atreus, of all the men the most covetous, how can the great-hearted Achaeans produce you a prize? We know of no common stock of goods in store. When we sacked the cities has been shared out, and to recall it now from the men would be most improper. You must give up this girl to the god, and we the Achaeans will repay you threefold and fourfold, if Zeus ever grants that we storm and sack the strong-walled citadel of Troy. Answering him, the Lord Agamemnon declared, fine warrior you may be, godlike Achilles, but don't play tricks on me. You'll not outwit or persuade me. Do you plan to keep your own prize, but leave me sitting here without one, since you tell me to give that girl back? Either I get a new prize from the great-hearted Achaeans, chosen to satisfy me, something of equal value, or if they give me nothing, I shall come in person and take your prize, or Ajax's, or carry off that of Odysseus, and he'll have cause for resentment, the man I come to. These matters, though, we can deal with at a later time. For now, let us haul down a black ship to the bright sea and assemble a crew of oarsmen, place oxen on board for sacrifice, together with Chryseis' fair-cheeked daughter herself. And let one man, a counselor, go as captain, Ajax or Idumeus, or noble Odysseus. Are you, son of Peleus, of all men the most fearsome, to make sacrifice for the appeasement of the deadly archer? Eyeing him angrily, swift-footed Achilles declared, you close horse for shamelessness, mine obsessed with profit. How could any Achaean be prompt to obey your orders, to march to war, or with might face men in battle? I did not come here on account of Troy's spearmen. Why should I fight them? In no way have they wronged me. Never have they driven off my cattle or my horses. Never in rich-soiled Phthia, the nurse of heroes, did they lay waste the harvest, since great distance lies between us, shadowy mountains and echoing sea. But you shameless hulk, we accompanied here for your pleasure, to win honor for Menelaus, and for you, you dog face, from the Trojans. But none of these things you heed or care for, and now you even threaten to rob me of the prize, to get which I suffered much, and the Achaean sons gave it to me. Never do I rate a prize to match yours when the Achaeans lay waste some populous citadel of the Trojans, though mine are the hands that bear the brunt of furious battle. And when the time comes for sharing, then your prize is by far the greater, while I, with some smaller thing, for my share trudge back to the ship still combat weary. Now I'm returning to Phthia, that's better by far, going home with my curved vessels. I'm not minded to stay here without honor, amassing you wealth in plenty. Then the Lord of men, Agamemnon, made answer to him, run away if your heart so bids you. Far be it from me to beg you to stay here for my sake. With me are many others who will treat me with honor. Zeus the counselor above all. Most hateful are you to me of Zeus's royal nurslings. Quarrels are what you love most, and wars and battles. That great strength of yours, I'd guess, was some god's gift. Take off homeward now with your ships and your comrades, lord it over the Myrmidons. For you I care nothing. I take no heed of your anger, and this is my threat to you. Since Chryseis is taken from me by Phoebus Apollo. Her, with a ship of my own and mine own companions, I will send back. But the fair-cheeked Briseis, your prize, I'll come to your hut myself and take, that you may know well how much stronger I am than you, and that others may fear to address me as an equal, to confront me face to face. So he spoke, and pain seized Peleus' son. The heart in his shaggy breast was divided, torn this way and that. Should he draw the sharp sword from beside his thigh, break up the crowd, and kill the son of Atreus, or swallow his bitter gall, restrain his passion? While he still was debating this in mind and spirit, his great sword half drawn from its scabbard, Athena came down from the heavens, dispatched by the white-armed goddess Hera, who loved and cared for them both alike in her heart. Standing behind him, she grasped Peleus' son's fair hair, appearing to him alone. Of the others, no one saw her. And Achilles turned around in amazement, instantly recognized Pallas Athena, the terrible radiance of her eyes. And uttering winged words, he thus addressed her. Why have you come this time, child of Zeus, the Aegis-bearer, to witness the arrogant gall of Atreus' son Agamemnon? For this I will tell you, and I think it will come about. Through his insolent conduct, he may well soon lose his life. To him then spoke in answer the goddess gray-eyed Athena. I have come here to check your rage, if you'll listen to me. Down from high heaven, sent by the goddess, white-armed Hera, who loves and cares for you both alike in her heart. Now come, leave off your strife, take your hand from your sword, abuse him with words alone regarding what will happen. For thus I declare, and it will certainly come about, one day, 3 times as many fine gifts will be offered you on account of this insult. So restrain yourself and obey us. Then in answer to her swift-footed, Achilles declared, Needs must, goddess, respect the words of you both, however angry at heart one may be. It is better so, and those who comply with the gods are listened to in return. With that, on the silver hilt, he set his heavy hand, thrust the great sword back in its scabbard, nor disregarded Athena's words, but she had already left for Olympus, home of Zeus of the Aegis, to rejoin the other gods. So Peleus' son, once again, with words of strong contempt, addressed the son of Atreus, his anger not yet ended. You wine-sodden wretch, dog-faced, dear-hearted, not once have you dared to arm yourself for battle with your troops, or joined in an ambush with the Achaean chieftains. Oh no, such things spell death to you. Better by far to range here through the broad camp of the Achaeans and take back the gifts of whoever speaks out against you. A king that feeds off his commons, who rules mere non-entities. Otherwise, son of Atreus, this new outrage would be your last. This, though, I will tell you and swear a great oath besides. By this staff, which never again will put out leaves or shoots since the day it first left its tree stump in the mountains, nor will it flourish afresh, since the bronze has stripped it of leaves and bark. And now those sons of the Achaeans who render judgments, who safeguard the ordinances of Zeus, carry it in their hands. This will be my great oath for you. One day, the need for Achilles will hit the Achaean sons, every man jack of them, then, for all your grief, you'll not be able to help them when many at the hands of Hector, killer of men, fall dying. You'll eat out the heart within you and sense that you failed to honor the best of the Achaeans.
Thanks very much, Professor Harreld, Dean Dettmer, and of course Peter Green. This concludes the opening ceremony, and at this point I'd like to ask Eta Sigma Phi personnel to come and sit at the table and for us to be ready to welcome readers according to the schedule. We're very glad that you came to join us today for this wonderful event. I know that we're very excited to be holding it now. We ask if you are able to stay and to continue to listen to this wonderful poem. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Noah. 1 second, please. Anyway, thank you very much, and Noah Andrews will pick up.
There's no book. I'll find out. Thank you.
Never do it. Spell it there.
Oh, yeah. It's past that.
Yeah. That's the key. That's it. There you go. There.
Beginning at line 245. So spoke the son of Peleus, then dashed to the ground the staff studded with the golden nails, and himself sat down. Across from him Atreus' stunned still raged. Then Nestor, the smooth phrase-maker, arose, the Pelians' lucid spokesman, a man from whose tongue the flowed sweeter than honey. In his lifetime, already 2 generations of mortals had passed away, those raised with him and their offspring.